Alright, as we all know, the most important thing today to navigate across websites is web pages, and the building blocks of web pages is provided by HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. So it was Tim Berners-Lee who first invented HTML. It was mainly intended for sharing scientific papers across the organization that he was working at, and the HTML as a language was standardized by W3C. It's a World Wide Web Consortium, so it's an international community. It has member organizations and full-time staff and the public. They all work together to come up with web standards. So I actually found a very good Accessibility Oz. It is one of the member nations, and you can actually go over to this link when you're free and have a look at that. I found that organization and its activities very interesting, so that's it's just out of curiosity that I looked up on their website, and I found this to be very nice, so you can have a look. And there's also a link here, the W3O consortium link, and you can have a look at what they do when it comes to standardizing things, or just all of their activities. Going further, the most important part of a website creation is the basic web pages. So since we are just starting off with HTML today, we are not going to delve deep into how an entire dynamic website can be brought up. We'll just restrict to a web page. So the main components of a web page are the content, that is the text, the images, or any content that you are trying to show to the world through your web pages. So that is the, what can we say, that's the crux of your web page. And then comes the structure. The structure is the HTML file. So all your tags, your elements, and all of that is provided by the HTML file. So for instance, if your content goes in a paragraph, if you want to just write a paragraph and show it to the world through your web page, then by making use of these open and close tags, you can give your content some structure. And then comes styling, wherein we focus on the color and font of that text. So content, structure, and styling, they work in perfect collaboration with each other to present a completely working web page. There is JavaScript as well for validations, but that we will be looking at a later point in time and not today. So it is JavaScript and CSS. We'll just keep it on hold for now and focus only on the HTML part of a web page creation. Coming to the communication between the front end and back end. So front end is something which is visible for a user. So whenever we are making use of a website, any website for that matter, we are the users, and whatever appears to us on that web page is the front end. And then there is a back end, which is actually taking in data from the user or fetching data for the user. Now, there are two important things whenever a communication takes place. There is a client and then there is a server. So client is nothing but the web users' devices which are connected to the internet, all the devices that we use to communicate with the server, the phones, the tablets, the laptops, or whatever, any device which is connected to the internet and which has your web page open for you, that becomes the client. And whenever the client sends a request to the server stores web pages or sites, and when a client device wants to access certain web page, what happens is a copy of that web page is downloaded from the server onto the client's machine, and then it is displayed for the client to use. So request is something that is sent from the client to the server, and response is something that is given back to the user from the from the server. So this is again a bird's eye view of how things are happening at a very high level. There are multiple stages and multiple terminologies and processes that are happening, but this is something that everyone who works with an HTML page, who works with web pages, should know at a high level. Now, hypertext markup language. So hypertext is something which is not linear. You do not have to follow a certain pattern. If a website is opened, the whole website and all of its components, all of the links, all of the sections of that website is available for the user to jump from one part of the website to the other. So there is no linearity there. So that's why it's hypertext. So you have different links, you have images, you have words on which you can click and go to different parts of the website. Why is it called markup? Markup means that all of the content of your HTML file is defined by tags. So we will be learning about tags and elements in the future slides, but what we need to know is HTML file, the behavior of a web page is decided by its tags. Everything is marked. And why is it a language? It's a language because there is syntax for it, there are tags, there are elements, there are comments. So it's just like any other language. It's a language that is used to communicate with the browser. The browser will communicate using the HTML file. So that's why it is a language, hypertext markup language. Now, we're basically going to deal with HTML5. We're going to work with HTML5, which is the latest version. Now, we can actually run an HTML file from VS Code. So these are the steps. So we can actually have a go, and we can do it right now. So can we do it right now? I need VS Code. So you first need to have a folder. You need to have a folder structure, and you can call it anything, preferably HTML or something that you can make sense out of.
Yeah,
so
you can stick that in your repos or projects directory, wherever you want to put it.
In your repos folder, you can just create a subfolder called HTML, and inside that create a file again with the extension .html. Oh, this is the folder that you created.
Well, I just created that one. Yeah, I'll push this up when we're done today. I'll create a repo in the Gentech, or I'll create a folder in the. No, you do it. You do it, but we'll push this up so you can pull down this if you want to later. Okay. But yes, you just follow along.
Yeah. So you can just create a folder, and then create a file, and then make sure that you give it an extension .html. Which is very important because the browser needs to understand that it's an HTML file, and make sure that you are inside that folder and you have the file open. Alright. Now you can do Control-Shift-X and it opens up the extensions option in the VS Code.
That one's going to be installed in mine already, but yeah, if you show installed, yeah.
You have it installed in yours?
That one will already be installed in mine. Yeah.
Okay.
You can see Go Live down at the bottom. Yeah.
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
So you want to look for Live Server.
Yes. So you can
don't
just
have that already.
Yeah, you can just search for Live Server by this person, Ritwik Day, and you just have to click on that and install the live server.
Live server, just look for live server.
Because we need a server to run the web pages that we are designing.
That's fine. Vic, you can call it whatever you want.
But it's just that you need to know that you've created a certain
So
file.
just install and
Can you control shift X? I've got it. You've got a live server. Yeah, it's gonna work.
Okay.
So, how many of us do not have a live server yet?
Yeah.
I assume all of us have it.
Just a couple more minutes. So look at this.
Yeah.
Yes. After installs, you probably have to reload.
Here.
Just a that's why you tell me. I was like, how do you tell me where that is? You just put that in. What does that do?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. That's all you do. So now what it's going to do, you don't have anything in there, so you don't want to package, but as you add stuff to it, it's going to update what's in there. Yes.
I installed it, but there's no good one.
Do you all have live share? It's installing. Live server. No. Live server. Where is it actually? You said live share. I'm so sorry. Because they both are different. Live server. This is the one, right? But okay, I think this live save might almost live. I was thinking about what you don't about sharing. Live share.
Does everybody else have live server?
I would just go
All right. While the live server is getting installed for few of us, what we'll do is we'll first go over the folder structure, a typical folder structure for a web page or for a small website, and then we will revisit this and we'll create a HTML file. Is that okay?
No, I can't see my code live.
You cannot see.
The blue line there.
Yeah. Did you?
Oh, yes, that's right.
I installed That'll last long, won't it? Did you want something? No, good, you like it? Sorry? Well, the class was just done last year. Oh, okay.
on Ruby Biz.
Yeah, got it. Like you get onto your software. Yeah, it's not
All right, so this is the folder structure of our
This live service, just when you develop an image, you can see the changes as you make them. Okay, everybody's good? Is anybody still stuck? You still stuck?
good.
Yeah, that's all right. It will make multiple videos. Yeah, just leave it. I can edit it after. We can just put it out how it is. Yeah.
All right, so if we have a look, we always need to have a root folder, and then probably a folder for images. So this is the first one is the folder structure for a simple website or a simple web page. So there is images, there is index, and then there is contact. Just imagine it as a very small business that a person owns, and there is index HTML to show about the business that the person is having. It gives a detailed description of what that person is doing. Then there is a contact.html wherein we have that contact us link in most of the websites that we visit. So contact.html could be another file, and then there could be another file which lists all the images. Say this person is a photographer and he has his images up. He wants to upload his images onto his website, upload his photos onto the website. So he has index, images, and contact, and then he has a separate folder called images wherein he has actually saved all his photography work or whatever, his photos. So that's a very simple website. But again, if the same person expands his business and say he has added a lot more stuff to his photography collection, so he can have subfolders called animals, fantasy, flowers, people, whatever, and then he can have different web pages. So this becomes a complex website. So this is a sort of a quick glimpse at how a folder structure should be. It should be meaningful. Related items should go in related folders, and there should be separate HTML files for different things. So you can keep hopping from one HTML file to the other, obviously, by providing links from file A to file B, from file B to file C, or from file A to file C. So you can provide links, but this is sort of a neat layout of how a website, a simple website, should ideally have the folder structure as. Alright, now I'm assuming all of us have go live, all of us have the live server ready.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll come back to this. Okay, now there is this folder called HTML intro and first HTML. Now, is this visible to everyone? Jai, at the end, everyone? Okay, so let me first highlight on the way we write comments in HTML file. It's always with an angular bracket, open angular bracket, an exclamation, 2 hyphens, my first, whatever, and then you close it. So in HTML, it is a good practice to always close the tags. That's a comment, but as we go ahead, as we delve deeper into the different HTML tags, elements, attributes, and so on, it is a good practice to close the tags just to make life easy, and it is in HTML5 it does not require us to close a few tags, but it is a good practice to always close them. Did you have a question? You okay?
You're talking about self-hiding.
Yeah.
Can you?
Oh,
Yeah, there are a few. Yes.
no, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I think in the Google, Google recommendations, they say not to close the tag, the self-signature stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Not to
Their
close?
style guide is what I'm trying to say.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they say to not do it.
Do you remember why they said? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be worth. Yeah, I might have a look at it because
Yes.
there's
But what do you recommend it of course? Doesn't have that.
Look, if you're working for yourself, then you can do what you want, but I would document the way that you do it. So if you're gonna either use an existing style guide, then have that as a part of your process. As this is the style guide we use, or create your own style guide. If you work for someone else, there's going to be a style guide that you have to follow, and you'll do however they tell you to do it.
All right. So doc type HTML. So now this doc type HTML is the first. It's the first tag that you will be using in an HTML file. That is mandatory. You will have to make use of that doc type HTML. So there is a link here if you want to have a look at the different kinds of doc type, because we have HTML 4.01 I think, and then we have XHTML. So we have all of those versions. So there is the way we declare doc type is different for different versions, but for HTML5, which is the version now that we're using, we just make use of doc type space HTML, and that is it. So if you want to have a look at sorry? Sorry, I didn't
A
get it.
bang, the exclamation point.
Is important.
Yes.
Yes.
So so now this is not an HTML tag as such, because this is not like the other HTML tags that we will be working with going ahead, but it is an instruction to the web browser about the version of the HTML. The web browser should know what is coming in. Okay, so that's the reason why we use this. It's more for the web browser to know what kind of document is it's going to deal with. So that is the first thing. Again, there is nothing to close that. You don't close that. You just write doc type HTML. And next is as we go ahead, you can actually start writing this along with me, so that in a few minutes time we'll have all the stuff that we need for a small little HTML file. We can run it and see the output, or we can see the small little web page in the browser. Alright, next is the HTML tag. Now this is very important because this is the root element. So you start HTML like this, and open angular bracket HTML, close angular bracket, and if you follow this till the very end of the HTML file, you can see that we are closing the HTML file at the very end of the file. So nothing goes beyond that. Alright. So if we are clear on that, so the minute you write HTML open Angular span HTML and close it, and then the close tag will come up automatically for you, so you don't have to extensively type it. So this is your HTML tag. Next is the head. Again, the head, if you see, you have an open tag or a start tag, and you have a close or an end tag. So again, we'll hop on to so the minute you close this tag, the end tag will come up automatically for you. So you have HTML and head. Now, if you see here, between start head and end head, there is a bit of content that has gone in. Now, the head tag will have certain other tags in it called meta and title. Now, whatever goes between the start and end of head tag will not be visible on the web page, will not come up on the web page, and the user will not be able to see or view that, because there is some information about the data that will come up later in the HTML file. So this data is not required for the user to view on the web page. So that is what we call as metadata. So metadata is basically data about data, or data about data. It is always passed as a name value pair. So if you have a look at this, this is a meta tag. Let me just copy this and then paste it here. Alright, now this is a meta tag. So viewport is nothing but the user's visible area of a web page. So whenever you open a web page in any device, be it a laptop or an Android device or a phone or a tablet or whatever, the viewport is nothing but the user's visible area of the web page, and it varies with the device. So on a mobile phone, probably it will be smaller than on a computer screen, and there is something called as width equal to device minus width. So this is what is going to set the width of the page to follow the screen width of the device. So this is the deciding factor. This is the deciding factor of how your page will look when you load it on a particular device.
And it's
So-
important to have this viewport tag when we do media queries for responsiveness. So if your media queries aren't working, the first thing you should look at is to make sure that you've got the viewport meta tag in your head. Okay, if that's missing, then your media queries won't work.
So name, viewport, content, the width, and the initial scale is, I think, the default value. So this is one example of a meta tag. Now again, this is quite self-explanatory. The user does not have to know all these details, but if this line of code goes into your HTML page in the head tag, it makes a lot of sense, because we are working with different devices. We are viewing web pages or websites on different devices, so it makes life easy for everyone. Now, there is another meta tag here which says the name and content. So this is again not visible to the user. And then there is something called as title. Again, the title is sort of not visible to the user. So we can just,
But
it goes on the,
tag.
yeah,
As a tag.
yes. I'll just show in a minute. So meta, 2 tags and 1 title tag. You can have multiple meta tags, and all of that goes within the head. Shall we move over to the next one? Next tag?
Are you guys trying to type that in? Do you want it in Slack, those 2 meta tags?
I typed it in.
You typed them in? Are you okay?
have we shared the first HTML?
I didn't.
We did.
No, I
You
didn't
didn't?
share first HTML. No,
So
which I don't
do-
think you need to. They can build it with you, but you can,
Yeah, because
if you
it's
want to
quite
paste the meta tags in.
yes.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit to actually type it out.
You need to stick it in lessons, yeah.
All right. Now we have the
What's that? Yeah, that's okay. You can take it out. So if you have a look at your live server now, one thing will have changed. If you know what title does, then you know what that is.
let me
Do you
try.
see that change happen?
It'll open. Okay, now. Sorry, I think I did not.
Yeah, it's running. You get
Yeah,
there.
that's running.
So
You need to click on the go live. Go live.
Web tab, and also this is my first HTML.
Tab title.
this is says
On
not
the tag.
Yeah, it's
So basically,
I think you can just make it if you add a tab.
so it'll open up the web page on the default browser for your machine, whatever is the default browser for your computers.
The meta name description, what that does is describes the web page if you hover over it.
Sorry.
If you hover, so the meta name description, if you hover over like the top corner,
On
there,
top corner.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
what that-
should. Yes, should actually, but I'm not sure why it is not happening now.
No, when you hover over.
No.
Which bit, Joe?
I'm thinking over the. This is my first HTML.
Mhm.
The
I
browser.
think it's
Google.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. I was just getting the information.
Ah, no worries. No worries. Yeah.
Oh, it says this is my first HTML page when you hover over it, and it's something like that.
Yeah, the description tag. That's for
Yes.
Yeah,
It does actually show that.
It doesn't show.
The
Yes.
meta name. It's meta. Don't leave us alone.
Um. All right. Now, shall we just add the next tag, which is the body tag? So we have the body tag again. It's very similar to any other tag. You have body. You have the start tag, and then you have the end tag. If you have a look all the way down to the end of the file, you have the body. So let me just go ahead and add the body tag. Now, everything from now on, whatever we put in the HTML file between the body tags will be visible to the user. Let me just. Alright, before we actually start off on the different tags and different elements that we will be dealing with while developing an HTML file, let's have a look at a brief introduction of what an HTML element is. So whenever we write or whenever we come up with an element for an HTML file, it'll have a name, it'll have an attribute, and it'll have a value. Like for instance, if you see here, these are the different tags, these are the different elements, and they have a attribute, ID, source, href, all these are attributes for that element, and then value is something that is there in double quotes. So copyright mypicture.jpg, and this link here, all of this become the value for the attribute of an element. Alright, so from now on we will be looking at different types of elements of an HTML file. Now, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5 and H6. These are all the heading elements. So if I just copy this and put it here, okay, so we have 6 different types of hierarchy in the heading element. Janan, do you want me to stop?
You're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you have a look at the board, I'll make this H2. This is heading 2. H2. Always remember, if you write H2 here, then you have to close that tag. So H2, close H2. Next, I'm going to change this to H3, 4, 5, 6. Same here, H3, 4, 5, 6. And even inside, for our own reference, make this 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll all do that together, and then we'll run the file and see what happens. Okay, so if you save this file and alright, so heading 1 to 6, these are the different hierarchies that you'll possibly find in the heading element. So these are the different hierarchies. So whenever you have a web page and you have different things to convey to the user on that web page, you can just put your content under different headings. So this is just in plain black and white, but we can make use of CSS for styling later on, right? Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll look at paragraph, which starts with P and ends with /P. So this is another tag. So for now what we'll do is we'll just put this here. So start P, end P. So that is very important, and whatever goes inside this will be your paragraph content or your text, whatever you want to write in the form of a paragraph. Alright, now the same thing. Okay, we'll just after every new addition to the HTML file, we'll just go and check if
Mine just refreshes.
It does refresh right away, doesn't it? Yeah, it's nice.
alright. So if you can see here, my first paragraph, this has come up in this way. Okay, now if you have a look at this, it is the same paragraph element. This is a paragraph under heading 1. Now if you want to highlight this, then you just have to add something called as strong before the word that you want to highlight, and again you have to close it after the word, so that whatever comes after this is not highlighted. So if you can just copy this and put this here. This is a paragraph under heading 1. So if you have a look at this, heading 1 gets highlighted. So let me just save it and run it. So if you see here, this is a paragraph under heading 1. So heading 1 has got highlighted. Yes.
So the strong tag is just actually making text bold.
Well, yeah. Alright. Can we go to the next one? Okay, I'll type it straight away here. So start and end comes up automatically if you just type the starting of the tag or the element. So this is paragraph under heading 2. Now this is another way to change the way your text will appear in that paragraph. So if you save it, yeah, I can just refresh my page every time. Okay, so this is sort of emphasized. So if you see heading 2, it's got emphasized because we used the EM there before and after heading 2. So those were a couple of examples how you could actually change the way you can show your text. Okay, now paragraph is a nested element. So it is nested inside the body tag, as we've been seeing right from the first time we used paragraph. I'm sure everybody agrees because we've used paragraph inside body. So paragraph is an example for a nested element. Once again, paragraph can be used inside a list. As you can see here, we have two kinds of lists. We have ordered and unordered. So you can actually use a paragraph inside a list. So if you have a look at this, there is this paragraph, there is a list under an unordered list. So if you just copy this, oh, sorry. So you have this inside other two elements. So paragraph is a perfect example for a nested element. So if you see this, a paragraph inside a list item, so guys, we're just not focusing on how your web page is looking right now, because the focus is more on getting to know as many tags and elements as possible and actually playing around with them and seeing how they appear whenever you save your HTML file and run the same. It's an unordered list. Unordered list. Okay.
Unordered list and OL would do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we're coming there next. We're coming there next. All right. Is it okay? Can I move on? Is it fine? Can I go to the next one? All right. Now we'll have a look at an unordered list and an ordered list. Now if I just copy this and put it on my index HTML, I have a UL and a list inside that. So this is an unordered list. So if you can see here, item 1 and item 2 are appearing on your web page with, they just bulleted. So it's an unordered list. You can take a couple of minutes to look at the syntax structure of that element. Alright, now we'll have a look at the ordered list. Oh yeah. So if you see there's the difference between the two, so an ordered list will give you a sequence of numbers wherein your list items are shown. I mean, that's how your list items are shown on your web page. So then there is something called as path for links and images. So you have a relative path and you have an absolute path. I think we all are very familiar with this as it is. We must have come across using relative paths and absolute paths elsewhere as well. So relative paths is when we have the links within the same directory or within the subdirectories. Like we can just say filename.jpg, or if you're accessing a file in the subdirectory, you can say image/filename.jpg, where image is the folder where you have your filename.jpg file. But at the same time, if you want to access something which is not in the same domain, then you will have to write the entire path. So it's the absolute path. So this is the difference between relative path and absolute path. So now if we have a look, so this will become the absolute path because you want to load this web page, which is basically elsewhere. So links in a HTML file have three components. They have a tag, a href attribute, and a title attribute. Now this A tag, this surrounds the image or the text and then converts them into a link. So unless and until you write start A and end A, whatever goes in between that will not make sense, because you need to convert that into a link with which you can navigate. So here href equal to the coderacademy.edu.au, this is the link. Target is another attribute which has the value underscore blank. This will ensure that whenever you click on this link, your web page or whatever you're trying to click on will always open in a new page, in a new tab. The title is Coder Academy, and Coder Academy is what will be visible for you to click on. Alright, so I can just put this on Slack, which will save us some time. So if you just do not forget to close the tag and make sure you have href, you have target, you have title, and you have the actual name of the link. Alright, now let's go and see. Yeah, so if you see here, you have Coder Academy coming up there on your web page. And it is from this page, it is opening up the Coder Academy website on a new tab, or it just opens it on a new, it opens a new page.
No, you're good. You're good. Very fine.
Alright, next. Okay, now there is something called as a BR, again within open, within the less than and the greater than symbol, angular brackets or whatever you can call them, and there is a BR, so that gives a break and things don't get messed up, they don't come together. So between two different links, if you want to have a line break, you can use BR, and the next whatever you put in comes below that. I'm just sending this again on Slack so that you can immediately copy it and put it onto your files, HTML files. Now, image is used for your images that you want to put on your web page. So if you use the image tag, then I just want you to, okay, let me do one thing for now. So image is just this much. You don't have a closing tag separately for image. So you open angular bracket, you write img, and then you write all your attributes and the values for the attributes, and then just write the, yes?
So the series embedding
Yes.
so you don't need to require it on your
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you be
If you're embedding the image, so you don't
Yeah.
need to require it on your own system.
No, well, yeah, so this is linking to an image, that's right. So this is using Cloudinary. Yeah,
That-
so you don't have to upload the image to your server, wherever you're serving your
Yes.
website from. Yeah, and when we get to Rails, we'll use Cloudinary also to host the images in your Rails project.
So this doesn't have to be locally present onto your
On your
on
server.
on your server.
That's right.
So, all right. So again, let's go back and see if we can view this. Yes. Alright, if you can see, you have the Coder Academy logo that's got loaded onto your web page.
It looks like maybe it's not. Can you just scroll up for a sec, Marsha? Can you just see what?
The image thing?
Yeah, I think you just have it in there twice. You have it in there twice. So go to the line on there. Yeah. Let's see. Go to the next one. Next one. It's on the line. Trying to find
Okay, next.
So I've got to do
Yes,
that
abs.
twice. Sorry.
I think no, don't copy all of that. Just copy the tag. Just copy the tag. So it's actually just the from there to right. So I think the problem is try pasting that as a snippet. Marsha, I'll do it.
Yes.
I'm just gonna paste this as a snippet because when you just
Yeah,
paste it
on
in.
Slack, we have that option. Of
Yeah. So if we do this, if we do a snippet.
Alright, okay, it removes all the invisible.
Then they can just copy it. It'll just be like that instead.
So abs, I think even you can,
Do the same.
yeah, do the same thing. Yeah, just copy paste. Oh, good. Okay. So next is the tables. So what we will do is we'll go step by step. So if you want to sort of write some content in a tabular format, you can have the table element. And have multiple rows and columns. So TR will give you a row. If you add this again, this will give you the data, I'm sorry, this will give you another row. Yeah, so if you see here, you have a table with 2 rows and 2 columns. Yes, ma'am.
What is the TR tag?
TR is table row.
Row, it'll add a table row.
TH is table head.
TR
Table row.
Row. So anytime, okay, let me just remove this once if you want.
TD is column. I don't know why it's TD. What does the D stand for?
TD is data, table data.
Table data.
Table data.
Okay, I think of it as a column.
Yeah, it's just a column.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, did I do TH again? Yeah, it's TD. Yeah, so TR will give you as many rows as you want. And then if you write TH,
TH is a heading, so it'll be well, you can style your headings, right? When you get to CSS, and you can say, okay, this is how I want headings to be styled. Just so we use a different tag there. By default, it'll just be bolded.
oh, sorry. Then you have TD, some data in there. Again, you have TD, data.
So it'll have 2 table heads.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it'll have 2 heads and 2
So
Two
it's like you
columns.
have 2 columns.
with data in it, and then it'll have a head.
So it's like if you had headers, for each of your columns of data. Like you had heading.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it.
So any questions about any of that, guys? That's just some very, very basic HTML.
Yes.
But in HTML, I don't think it gets too complicated. The complication for me in web pages is in CSS.
CSS.
CSS gets really complicated. So we'll spend a lot more time on that. We'll revisit, a couple of other things in HTML as we need to. But most of what we do from now until we do the portfolio will be CSS. Yeah.
Can I?
HTML, if you already know a little bit about coding, it's pretty self-explanatory.
It is, yeah, and there's not much to it. There's a pretty small set of tags and elements, really.
Can I close the recording? Stop the
The
recording.
semantic tag.